Last night I was reading Pema Chodron's book, Comfortable with Uncertainty, which is wonderful. And one of the things that I was drawn to, which is something that I also read about in her book, When Things Fall Apart, is this concept of how we get caught up in four different dichotomies, one that we like and one that causes suffering. For example, pleasure and pain, fame and disgrace, gain and loss, praise and blame. Those are the four different areas. And as I thought about those, I thought, wow, so much effort and energy goes into these. And she said, the goal is not to try to avoid them or transcend them or not pursue the positives or whatever, but to be very aware of how these are occurring and how they are influencing us. So through greater awareness of these, we can become less controlled by them. Now, pleasure and pain, that is the fundamental, the basis that I think underlies all these different subcategories. Obviously, we're motivated on a biological level to seek pleasure and avoid pain. However, sometimes in our pursuit of pleasure, we become more uncomfortable because of overindulgence. Food is an example of, wow, it's just really great to eat and feels good, but then, you could become unhealthy by eating too much, and it can affect your well-being. In the dichotomy of fame and disgrace, I thought about this because sometimes I get attached to how many people are viewing my videos, how many subscribers there are. It's fame, it's just the ego desire. And the opposite of that is disgrace, which is, people are criticizing you, people don't like what you are about, and so you're the opposite of fame, you're unfamed, you're disgraced, you're humiliated. And you see a lot of this played out in the media in terms of celebrities. We think it's great when they're on top of their game, but there's a kind of ego pleasure that comes from their disgrace if they fall from grace, because then we can say, well, I'm better off than that person, and so the ego gets both into the identification with when they're doing well and the superiority when they are having difficulties. And fame makes sense on a biological level. I believe that a lot of our tendency is towards either trying to survive on a physical level or to procreate so that we partially survive genetically. And so if you think of that in terms of fame, then it makes sense, because if you're more famous, then you're safer in the sense that if you have more people that care about you, then there's more people that are going to take care of you and help you if you need any kind of food, shelter, basic needs met. And then also more likely to find a partner if you're famous than if you're disgraced. So I think that can be a motivation. A motivation for fame is the biological instincts. Gain and loss is another one of the dichotomies. We gain through acquisition of things, of acquisition of friends, relationships, these kinds of things. And when we lose them, then there is a feeling that we are moving closer to death, that we are less safe without that which we've gained. But in my experience, sometimes, there's been a couple times in my life where I just purged the vast majority of all the things through sudden moves that I didn't take my stuff with me, and there's a cleansing feeling that comes from the loss of stuff. It was, for me, part of peeling away my socialized identity and getting to the place where I could see that I could always start over, I could always acquire new things, but that which was constant, which is that which I carry with me in my identity, my thoughts, my mind. And another dichotomy, the last one, is praise and blame. And praise can also be looked at in terms of, the biological instincts to survive. That if you're being praised, then you are liked, and people are more likely to take care of you and make sure your basic needs are met. And if you receive blame, that means that people are upset, someone's upset with you, and they're less likely to care about your well-being and less likely to take care of you. Also, if you're being praised, then that person, if it's somebody that you're drawn to, that also kicks into the socio-biological desire to have children, and that somebody who's praising you is more likely to partner with you, and even if you're not consciously interested in having children, then that can still be a motivation on a biological level for you. With praise and blame, the allure of praise is so great that the problem is that sometimes we can compromise ourselves and do things that will receive praise even when they're not in integrity with our own personal value system, or things that don't really feel congruent on a bodily level, but we know we will be liked for them. And that can be a pretty ineffective way to go through life, seeking praise. And a lot of times, ultimately, it's a setup for the eventual blame that comes from when you can no longer appease another's wishes, and they are used to you being addicted to praise. And so then you receive blame because you're no longer behaving the way that you're supposed to. So ultimately, instead of getting caught up in the praise and blame dichotomy and that cycle of high and low, I believe it's best to just tune in to who you really are, which means connecting with yourself as an individual and really reflecting on what works and what doesn't work in your life, and finding your own value system and living by that. And when you find who you are, then you don't have to worry about your praise coming from a lack of congruence. You just find a community or an individual or contentment in yourself where there is an alignment with a similar value system. Of course, with yourself, you just have your own value system to live by, and your own praise can be enough. But if in terms of building relationships with other people, once you know who you are and you find people that have the same kind of values, then praise comes naturally. It's more like appreciation really than praise, because you're aligned, you're on the same page, you're working towards the same goal. So in this process of being yourself, I think it's useful to keep in mind these 4 different ways of suffering or not suffering: pleasure and pain, fame and disgrace, gain and loss, praise and blame. Keep track of how those are influencing your life, and you may find yourself becoming a lot more conscious of what motivates you and how to navigate your way with integrity.